Hello, welcome back to SIHH Live. We are going to talk about preservation and transmission of traditional skills, watchmaking skills and knowledge. And the story goes a bit like this. A few years ago, a group of exceptional watchmakers came together and started realizing that the set of skills that converge into creating great timepieces was becoming, and these are their words, an endangered species. And so they decided to do something about it, and the something is the creation of a foundation whose aim is to preserve outstanding craftsmanship. And that's what we're going to discuss today. The foundation is called Æon Foundation, and we have some of the founders here. They already started a series of projects. We're going to detail the projects and unveil the newest one. And we have Stephen Forsey, who is also a co-founder of Greubel Forsey. Please welcome to the stage, join me, Michel Boulanger, professor of watchmaking, professor au Lycée Diderot de Paris. Michel, bonjour. This session is going to be a bit bilingual. And Felix Baumgartner, who's also co-founder of a watchmaker Urwerk. Felix, welcome.
Thank you.
Of course, you represent a larger group of people. It's not only you in this foundation. There are many, many others. And then we will have a fourth guest in a moment when we will present the newest project of the foundation. Stephen, let's start one thing at a time. Let's start with the idea, the need. Why this foundation? Why the need for it?
Yes, so this goes back to discussions in about 2005 with Philippe Dufour, who is with us, and thanks for joining us. It's great to have you with us. So with Mr. Dufour, we were, with Mr. Greubel, myself, we were talking just towards the end of our Basel fair in those days about how it was difficult to find young watchmakers with the basis of the skills of traditional watchmaking. And so we realized, talking together, that it wasn't just our own requirements, but it was a general loss of this training and this know-how. You see, as time evolves and the watch industry has grown, the needs are more industrial. It's more for technicians who can place parts and change parts, not to make the parts. And so, even in Switzerland, the training of these foundation skills, traditional hand watchmaking skills, is something which is seriously endangered or does no longer exist at all.
Yeah, you actually use on your website the word endangered, and you say on the brink of extinction when you describe these skills. What kind of skills exactly?
Well, because, you know, even a basic hand craftsmanship, filing, turning components, working to, you know, for myself, I started my career with restoration in antique watches. So there you have a watch which a broken part or a missing piece of mechanism. So you have to enter into the spirit of that and imagine how it was done, and sometimes use the same tools to saw by hand, file by hand, turn between centers, these type of skills with the bow. These type of skills are the things which are not really taught anymore. And so, you know, with Philippe, he felt cruelly this. And so what happened was, with the watch industry crisis in the 70s and 80s, that a great gap occurred already in training. And then with the renewal of interest in mechanical watchmaking, which is fantastic and which has grown, but that orientation has taken a jump. And so we have that gap of skills even amongst teachers in general. And Michel can testify to that as well.
We're going to talk about that, exactly.
Yeah.
So there was a full group of people coming together, and here are what you call the family, what I call the founders of the foundation.
Yeah.
What is your end goal? What do you want to achieve?
So the major difficulty and challenge is already to draw attention to the loss of these skills and try to get some leverage, some visibility, some awareness. But concretely, what we set out with the support of Philippe and our own team, people in our own team, with Mr. Greubel, myself, was to say, well, we're trying to inventory these skills. So try and gather them together, practice them while they are still alive, and find a way to, already using modern tools of digital media, digital photography, video, to try and repertory inventory them, and that way also to try and find a way to transmit those skills.
So if I understand correctly, and really simplifying here,
Yeah,
the model
thank
is
you.
we find exceptional watchmakers, we train them, and they commit to pass on those skills further down the line to somebody else.
Well, with the initial idea of the foundation was with Mr. Dufour and ourselves, we thought that perhaps we would get support from a big group or from the Confederation in Switzerland to realize that we need to safeguard these skills with at least a hardcore of skilled watchmakers for the future. Otherwise, going to lose this know-how.
Yeah. So the foundation has run already 2 projects. We are going to talk about a third as well today. If I have to describe it in Lilia tweet, is the first project was about creating a watch by hand, and the second project was about using ancient machines. But let's talk about the first project first. Naissance du Montre 1, Birth of a Watch, was launched actually here at SIHH in 2012, I think, or
2012,
13.
yes, the first time,
So how did that start? You picked a watchmaker, you picked Michel Boulanger, you're going to talk with him in a second. Why that choice, and what did you expect from him?
Well, as we mentioned with Philippe, Robert, and myself principally, we were talking together how we could do something. We tried to get support with the idea, ideally, of making a school to add perhaps a training to the basis of watchmaking school training today. Unfortunately, we could not get resource. Nobody really believed in perhaps, or was sensitive, or had the time for our project. So with Robert and myself, and with Philippe's expertise, we said, well, we have to do something. So because the time is moving on. So that was when we had the idea. We said, well, perhaps we could find one watchmaker. If he was a teacher, then if he undertook to guarantee to then transmit these skills to a wider audience, perhaps we can start to slow down by training and giving some hope, some courage, some basis of skill to younger watchmaker training. Then we can perhaps start to slow down the process. So that's where Robert Greubel knew Michel, and we'd also worked briefly together. He met Philippe, and we felt that Michel had the broad shoulders necessary. Excuse the cliche, but Michel had the resistance to be able to take this challenge and achieve it, because we only had one chance. You know, Philippe was a very busy man, watchmaker, working pretty much on his own. So to be able to free some time to share his skills with Michel would be a challenge, and we had to be sure we could complete the project. As you mentioned then, so we started that in 2010. 2012 SIHH, we had no space, no resource, so we took a small slot in our booth at Greubel Forsey, and we started with Michel and Philippe's support to showcase some of these skills. But it took 2012, 2013, 2014, until 2015, when Michel arrived on the Sunday evening with a working movement of Naissance d'une Montre, with tic-tac, no decoration, but there, demonstrating the application of these traditional skills of ancestral machines before industrialization. And so there, everything suddenly started to gain some momentum.
Okay, so Monsieur Boulanger, Michel, il vient nous expliquer comment on vous a choisi, pourquoi on vous a choisi. Un certain moment, vous recevez un coup de fil qui vous dit ben, vous avez été choisi pour le premier projet de naissance du montre. Et puis, qu'est-ce qui s'est passé? Racontez-nous votre expérience.
Bonjour. Oui, bah, au démarrage, c'est surprenant. Je n'avais pas bien réagi au début. C'était en plus une période où on avait fini les examens chez nous à Paris. Donc je dis, bon, bah, on verra ça un peu plus tard. Je n'ai pas pris ça au démarrage comme un projet important. Je dis, bon, j'ai laissé tomber. Et on m'a rappelé un peu plus tard, au mois de septembre, quand même. Donc on a attendu un petit peu les vacances d'été. Et puis, je crois que c'était à l'époque, peut-être Robert qui m'avait rappelé. Au début, je n'avais pas eu Robert, donc j'étais un peu, je ne savais pas vraiment qui m'avait appelé. Robert me dit, tu vois, on fait un projet un peu spécial, et peut-être que Philippe Dufour sera parmi nous. Oh, je dis, mince, quand même, ça va devenir plus important avant. Je dis, écoute, dans ce cas-là, je vois ça chez nous, si c'est possible au niveau de l'administration française, si je peux m'absenter un petit peu pour voir ce qu'on peut faire, et puis bah, je me renseigne. Puis de fait, à l'heure d'aujourd'hui, je me dis que j'ai eu raison d'oser l'aventure.
Donc ça s'est passé comment? Vous avez fait aller-retour entre la France et la Suisse?
Non,
pour aller... En fait, vous êtes un professeur, mais qui redevient élève.
Voilà, oui, c'est ça. Et là, donc à un moment donné, j'ai eu la chance que, au niveau de ma hiérarchie, on m'ait octroyé 3 années. Je n'enseignais plus pendant 3 années, ce n'était pas possible par rapport à la quantité de travail à fournir. Donc j'ai arrêté d'enseigner et je suis redevenu élève. Et là, on se rend compte qu'on a peut-être commis des erreurs à un moment donné en tant qu'enseignant. On a oublié des choses qui étaient un petit peu simples. J'ai eu le cas avec Philippe, on se dit mince, c'est des choses simples qui paraissent simples pour nous mais qui ne le sont pas pour les élèves. Et j'ai eu le même statut. Et redevenir élève, c'est aussi porteur pour l'avenir en tant qu'enseignant après.
Donc vous vous sentez meilleur prof maintenant? Quelque part.
Je ne sais pas, je ne pense pas. Différent certes, en termes de compétences, meilleur prof, je ne pense pas.
Ok, je vais montrer la montre que vous avez créée, qui est celle-ci.
Oui.
Racontez-nous la montre.
Là, en 10 minutes, ça va être juste.
Essayons.
8. À quel niveau vous voulez?
Décrivez-la pour un public qui n'est pas spécialisé en montre.
En 2 mots, au démarrage, je venais à peu près 1 fois par mois en Suisse avec des projets. On m'avait dit, voilà, tu as carte blanche pour produire un appareil horaire. Alors j'arrivais chaque mois, en fin de mois, on arrivait et hop, j'amenais tous mes dossiers, mes dessins, très fier, honnêtement très fier. Et par moments, je repartais vraiment pas toujours très fier, parce que ça plaisait pas, parce que c'était pas ce qu'il fallait, parce qu'on avait... La carte blanche est une chose qui est redoutable, c'est tout et rien, et surtout c'est rien. Et je pense que Robert, Steven et Philippe ne savaient pas vraiment ce qu'ils voulaient, mais ils savaient surtout ce qu'ils ne voulaient pas. Et ça, c'est terrible, parce que au fur et à mesure, c'est pour ça qu'on a mis un petit peu de temps sur ce projet, parce qu'il a fallu que je trouve ce qui correspondait, ce qu'il fallait avoir. Donc on a cherché, et puis au fur et à mesure, les choses sont venues. Personne n'a imposé, ni Philippe, ni Robert, ni Steven, n'ont dit, voilà, il faut ça. C'est venu naturellement, comme le tourbillon, ce qui peut paraître un petit peu au démarrage obligatoire pour Greubel Forsey, et ben, ça ne l'était pas au démarrage. C'est venu naturellement. Et puis voilà, donc aussi ici, à un moment donné quand même, j'ai Philippe Dufour qui nous a dit, tu sais, j'aimerais bien un petit enclitage de la vallée de Joux. Et là, quand Philippe dit ça, je me suis dit, allez Philippe, on ne peut pas refuser. On l'a mis et honnêtement, je crois qu'il a eu raison de nous proposer à l'époque.
Bon,
voilà.
Donnez-nous quand même une petite description technique de haut niveau dans la montre.
Alors, donc on a heure, minute, seconde. On est donc sur des cadrans excentrés. On a un tourbillon battant la minute traditionnelle, comme Riegel avait fait à l'époque, il faut dire ce qui est. On est sur une fréquence de 18 000 alternances par heure. Pourquoi? Parce qu'on voit la roue d'échappement qui tourne, qui s'arrête et qui redémarre. On a un bruit spécifique de l'échappement à 18 000. C'était ça qu'on voulait. C'est une montre aussi qui veut d'être un partage horloger, mais aussi un partage pour ceux qui les auront. On a aussi fait en sorte que le mouvement soit inversé pour qu'on n'ait pas besoin de retirer la montre pour montrer le mécanisme. Donc c'est vraiment un partage dans les deux sens, horloger et aussi du possesseur de la montre, uniquement. C'était ça un peu l'objectif principal.
Ça, quelque part, c'est une montre école, non? Il y avait une époque où les écoles demandaient aux élèves de créer une montre à la fin des études pour démontrer ce qu'ils avaient appris. Les écoles, beaucoup d'écoles ne le font plus vraiment, mais quelque part, ça, c'est encore une montre école.
Oui, tout à fait. C'est considéré comme une montre école. La preuve, puisque la montre école qui a été vendue, ma montre école, celle qui a permis de valider mes 3 années de travail, a été vendue à Hong Kong. Oui. C'était ma montre école.
C'était en fait des enchères de Christie's, sauf erreur, 1 460 000, quelque chose comme ça.
Oui, je vous fais confiance sur les chiffres.
Ce qui certainement aide pour le financement des autres projets.
Bah, surtout là, c'est ça.
C'était donc la montre école, mais il y a eu 11 autres pièces qui ont été inspirées par ça, qui ont aussi toutes été vendues à des collectionneurs. C'est bien ça?
Tout à fait, ça, 11 pièces, tout à fait. C'était 1 plus 11.
D'accord, super. Félicitations, c'était une très belle montre. And then came a second project, naissance du montre 2. And here is where you come in, Felix, and others, because the project was about creating a watch as it was done 100 years ago, using old machines, essentially. Tell us about that, the machines and the project.
Okay, so I'm Felix Baumgartner, grew up in a watchmaker family. My grandfather worked at IWC. My father still restores clocks today. So I was very close from the beginning on handmade watchmaking, actually more restoring old clocks. And when I started Urwerk 22 years ago, we actually only had manual machines. So we had a Schaublin 102 and a Sierra F1, and we had only this to make our watches. So the first 50 watches at Urwerk were done by hand. I'm telling this because when you look at an Urwerk, it's not at all, it doesn't look handmade, but there is a lot of handmade savoir-faire in it. So with this project, we want to somehow show that we care about the history of woodworking, even if you are totally à l'aise, in comfort, in using the latest techniques in woodwork. But first, you have to master the rule before breaking them. This is a phrase I just invented.
Yeah, it's new slogan.
It's
yes.
a totally new sentence. So this is something. Then my engineer, old friend Dominique Busser, actually came up 10 years ago with his dream to do a watch entirely by hand. And as I love the extremes between Urwerk and the handmade, and I was extremely intrigued by that idea. And in parallel, I met Stephen and Robert doing Naissance d'une montre, and I said, but actually there is a fit. There is something we can share. And then the idea of a co-creation came up, an exchange of ideas, and how we can set up the project. And so to share values which are super important for our little industry. You know, 98% of our movements, they look like they would be traditionally made with traditional wheels, barrels, balance wheel, with the finish, the aesthetic, but actually they are done by robots. So for me as a young watchmaker, it was very frustrating to see that. And so I was very lucky to meet Stephen and Robert to do something against them, to keep the values and the savoir-faire. So this is just to introduce a bit what
and to share those values. I think it's the
absolutely.
Yeah.
So this is the group that was involved in that project. And if I understand it correctly, Dominique and Cyrano were the students, and Stephen and others kept being the teachers.
So basically,
or am I wrong?
Basically, I went to a watchmaking school with Cyrano and Dominique.
Yeah.
They have been the best in their class, in their year, in the watchmaking school in Solothurn. I know them since more than almost 30 years. So they were even better than their teachers in executing and calculating. So really very nice people. And they are today, since the last 10, 15 years, Cyrano 10, Dominique 15 years, they make the constructions and the prototype atelier at Urwerk.
Yeah.
And they have now their own project of doing this movement entirely by hand. And I support that on my side with Martin. Martin is my associated, and he's my partner at Urwerk, and we actually designed together with Robert and Stephen the case. Because not only the movement is done by hand, also the case is done by hand. And this is also something we wanted to show, that even a very futuristic looking watch can be done by hand. And when you start, you have to do it by hand, because you don't have the money to make it immediately in CNC. So it's important.
So this is the watch.
Yes.
All made with very old machines that were basically discarded from the rest of the industry.
So this is a passion.
Machines,
this is a passion we have in our prototype atelier of old machines, the best old machines 100 years ago, the manual machines.
Yeah. Describe the watch for us.
So okay, it's on one side for sure the values, to keep the values of the handmade. Every part we are able to do, we do them by hand. And on top, as the values of Urwerk is innovation, we wanted to bring actually an innovation in this piece, which is a tensator barrel. So it's actually two barrels which are combined with a differential, which can bring out a constant force. So it's a new way of a constant force in a mechanical movement, never done before in a mechanical watch. So this is the innovation side of the constant force in this movement. So you have 18,000 hertz balance wheel. And then, as you can see, the case is also designed by Martin, basically, and also, for sure, Robert and Steven. We were in an exchange. It's a co-creation.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you can see some DNAs of Urwerk in the case, the crown at 12, the engravings on the side. There are some, yeah.
Is this a unique piece, or were there several of them?
So it's a totally unique piece.
Okay.
It's one piece, one off. Actually, we do one working piece, one prototype, which will stay in the foundation for the exhibitions, and which is owned by the foundation in future. And then there will be one piece sold at auction.
Okay. Did you say you have those machines in an atelier?
Yeah.
The old machines. Do you still use them? Do you plan to use them beyond this project?
Absolutely. So actually, we use them every day on our existing production also at Urwerk. We make prototypes, prototyping. We also have the two engineers, Cyrano and Dominique, have the idea to make 2 to 3 watches per year by hand on their own. So this is for sure. We're going on.
Okay.
And actually, these two people also are teachers in the watchmaking school in Solothurn, so they can further bring these values to their élèves.
I see. So
in
the question of transmission
it's the transmission
central,
which is also
remains central to this. Yeah. Which brings us, of course, to Naissance du Monde 3, Birth of a Watch 3, and to discuss that, I would like to invite our fourth panelist to join us on stage, Karl-Friederich Scheufele, co-president of Chopard and president of Chronométrie Ferdinand Berthoud, and is in this second role that you're here. Thank you for joining us. So this third project is starting now on the same assumptions, preservation and transmission of skills. And Ferdinand Berthoud has decided to associate itself with it. It's called La Fusée Chaîne, which we could roughly translate into rocket chain, but it's not an exact translation. Tell us a little bit about it. There is nothing known about it because basically we launch it now. So tell us a little bit about it, the thinking behind it, and why Ferdinand Berthoud associates itself with it.
I think in our case, the project started really with a meeting with Stephen. He invited us to visit his manufacture, which I happily did with my son. And by speaking about craftsmanship, getting lost and being lost, I realized that we were basically worried about the same problems. And hearing more about the first project, I thought this would be something that would very much fit Ferdinand Berthoud's philosophy. You know, Ferdinand Berthoud in 1759 published a book, How to Build Clocks. And this was actually meant for Monsieur Tout le Monde at the time. And so he really has this philosophy of sharing knowledge. And that's what brought me to the conclusion that I should participate. I'm the only non-watchmaker here on this panel, but after spending so much time building a manufacture, I must say I understand a lot of the challenges.
So tell us about this third project, La Fusée Chaîne. The first one was about doing a watch by hand, the second one about resurrecting old machines. The third one, I assume, has a different theme, although the goal is the same.
Well, the Fusée Chaîne, and maybe you already said too much, because we have not yet, or we are not able to publish any precise information about the project.
Well, the only thing I know is this one here, which is a drawing of it.
Well,
but that's the
Fusée
only
Chaîne
published thing.
is the ongoing theme in the Ferdinand Berthoud clocks, of course, and the Ferdinand Berthoud watch, which we presented in 2015. So definitely we will be working around this theme, also exploring balance wheels, because I think there's still a lot to do. And the idea is not a singular approach, but a team approach. As in our group at Chopard, we take pride in teaching young people, and we do have altogether about 50 young people learning different trades, watchmakers, but also mechanics and other fields. We thought it'd be interesting to have a group approach and to make them participate in this project. And making a watch by hand, or as far as possible by hand, but also using machines, but nothing, or everything before CNC, everything mechanical, basically.
No robots.
Or mechanic by hand. And that is the overall approach, so that a certain number of people can participate and be motivated about the project, if not the entire company in a way. That's what I would like.
Have you already launched the project inside the company or not yet?
No, this is a premiere, I would say,
Okay.
right here today.
Okay.
If I can, thank you, Mr. Scheufele. You know, this is the spirit of the initiation with Philippe Dufour and ourselves, was to say, you know, we need to transmit, we need to share this know-how. It does not belong to us. As Philippe said, the cemeteries are full of secrets. But these methods, these techniques, these traditions do not belong to us. We are the guardians. And so for Mr. Greubel, myself, and our Æon Foundation, what drew us to want to participate with Ferdinand Berthoud is their spirit to transmit that through different departments. It's kind of, you know, the miracle that we didn't have any of us the means to do at that time, to be able to get specific skills and be able to share them to a wider audience, to transmit that know-how. And so we salute the initiative. Of course, Monsieur Scheufele is very modest. He says, you know, but he has already had to convince his team, because what we have done, Michel has done with Philippe's support, and then Felix has been working on is already years of work to get to there. And so to be able to convince his team, because you can't just walk in and say, you're going to do this. The people have to believe it. It has to be in their soul to want to take this knowledge and to be able to grow it. As Michel said, he lived the experience himself firsthand, and he discovered a lot of things on the adventure about himself and about the technique and the tradition and the difficulties we face. So it's the beginning of a fantastic phase for Æon, and to collaborate together with the different actors.
And since we are announcing it, I assume the team did say yes and did buy into your vision for that.
We hope so.
Okay. Let's see if anyone here has a question for one of our... Yes, absolutely. Let's see if anyone has a question. Yes, can we get a microphone just here? Please raise your hand so they can see you. Yes, coming.
Thank you. Congratulations. Love what you are doing with the Æon Foundation. My question is regarding the Naissance du Montre number 2. So, Mr. Baumgartner, you mentioned there is a constant force, 2 barrels, and I assume it is the power reserve indication. Can you be more specific regarding this mechanism?
Okay, have you ever been skiing in Switzerland mountains?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
So you see this when you go up the lift where you have this anchor, you know, holding 2 people. So you have inside this bobbin actually a force, you know, which is actually always constant from the beginning up till it gets a distance, and then it pulls you up. It's a constant force. So they use actually the same tensator And probably it inspired Dominique also because he loves skiing. So it comes from a Swiss background there from the mountains. So it's really a special spring which is winding through two barrels and combined with two differentials. But I should show that more on a technical drawing that it's really understandable. It comes out of it's quite complex actually to create, but it's good to have a constant force from the beginning. Usually the constant forces are done from a later moment on in the movement, and this is one from which starts in the very beginning of the movement. So it's really not creating more. All the wheels are protected somehow. So it's a different way, but I'm sorry, I can't go more into that than this explanation.
Always surprising where inspiration comes from. Anyone else? Yeah.
Hello, my name is Ed Tonkin. I'm from Portland, Oregon. Perhaps you've heard of Oregon. I want to thank you all for what you do for the industry. I've admired all your work, and everybody makes such a wonderful contribution. So, that being the case, this is what you're doing harkens back to romanticism of the industry, and as you said, guardians and keeping this real tradition alive. Is it possible that in this discovery that you're making of these traditional methods, that you will then incorporate them back into the current production that you're using in any way? Because now, as you mentioned, in our age of rampant industrialization, people still yearn for some of the classic techniques. So do you think that discovering what you're doing, there are any things that you can bring back to the current production?
Who wants to take that?
So, okay, on the side of Urwerk, I love extremes. So I love 100% handmade. I love also the technique and the science of today with all the laser Liga technique. So on some parts in Urwerk where it makes more sense to make them by hand, we do them by hand. We do 150 watches per year. So there it's not always logic to go further than just to do it by hand. It's the best, most logical way. But then, yeah, we combine. So we can learn for sure. This is our prototype atelier, which is anyway doing this and learning. And we take that over into our current collection for sure, production, absolutely.
Please.
You know, I think it's a bit like driving. We are driving forward most of the time, but we are using a rear mirror to see what's going on behind. And if we don't respect tradition and we don't know about the tradition, or we don't even know the crafts that were carried out years ago, I don't think we will master the future. And I think, as you just said, it's very good to master both. And what this project will help us with is to make sure that we are aware and that we are able to draw back on the traditional crafts, because a lot of work that we carry out on the Berthoud pieces is definitely by hand. But there are certain things we could not have done otherwise than by using, you know, the latest technology. So the combination of both is vital, but what happened before needs to be kept.
One last question.
Bruno?
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I exactly join what the Felix and Scheufele say. Certainly, I think it's really important that it's not only about building watches today and tomorrow, but as well outside it here. In these days, there are a lot of complicated watches which are made using sophisticated technology and built by technicians perhaps, or people who don't understand all these techniques. in 20, 50 years' time, these will need restoring, repairing. And to do that, we're going to need these skills. And this is really the impetus and the critical loss of this know-how. Because, yes, we at Greubel Forsey, we also integrate heavily from the beginning hand finishing techniques, and we do more traditional work as time goes on, because we have to find the people to do that, and we have to train them. But it's this restoration. I began my career in that. Michel, Felix, I think you know, we've often, Philippe himself. And if we cannot restore those watches in the future, they just become a static, dull object. And so this risk of distilling our whole, the whole beauty, the whole passion of fine mechanical watchmaking can only drive in one direction, unless, as Mr. Scheufele says, we look in the mirror, we learn the past, we understand the techniques, and then we can bring some of them into play now, and some of them we will use in the future.
Yeah. Mr. Scheufele, just a last question. What is the time horizon for La Physicienne?
The time horizon is...
just to know when to invite you back.
Yeah. Well, but that is the paradox, of course. Everyone today wants things done very quickly. But in this case, the time horizon will be somewhat around 5 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you all. Thanks for the initiative. This is really a great project. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Michel.
Thank you.
Merci.
Thank you.
Felix.
And for us here, first, thank you for coming too, and thanks for those to those who have been watching online. The next session, well, when is the last time you've heard a fine watchmaking brand mentioned in a hip-hop song? Well, if you've never heard that, it's going to happen at 3:30 p.m. Geneva time. We have a session by Parmigiani. It's about data, but it will include music. 3:30 p.m. Geneva time. We're going to be back. Goodbye for now.